The Ishtoas were born from war. On the planet Liber, where oceans remained untouched and mountains stood unscarred, survival was earned through blood and battle. Their history was not written on scrolls, but carved into memory with weapons. For thousands of years, their tribes fought endlessly, for land, for pride, for breath. Each tribe was ruled by 2 or 3 elected war leaders, whose sole purpose was to plan raids, expand territory, and defend their own. Violence was not a burden, it was a duty. The elders encouraged it. Children were trained in bladecraft before they learned to speak. Even the elders competed for the honor of one last kill. But blood came with a price. Over generations, the wars drained their numbers. At times, the tribes paused. Not from wisdom, but from exhaustion. Temporary truces were called to protect pregnant females and repopulate dwindling settlements. Yet peace never lasted. As soon as the births outpaced the deaths, the blades rose again. Among the fractured canyons of eastern Liber, where jagged cliffs loomed like the teeth of ancient beasts, a young Ishtoa named Alev stood watch over the remnants of a battlefield. Smoke curled from smoldering roots. The stench of scorched flesh clung to the wind. Her hands, smeared with soot and blood, still gripped the ceremonial blade she had sworn never to raise. Around her lay silence. No mourning, no triumph. Only the earth, moaning under the weight of so many dead. She had spoken of unity once, only once, and the silence that followed had been louder than any war cry. The elders had scoffed. Warriors she'd once trained would no longer meet her gaze. At the communal fires, her voice was drowned beneath the scrape of blades and the thud of fists against stone. Her words, about mercy, about a future without blood, were met with averted eyes, with smirks, with silence thick enough to wound. When she stood again, it was not with a weapon. She walked among them, empty-handed, eyes steady, speaking not to command, but to reach. And someone answered, not with words, but with a spear. It struck from behind, sudden and silent. Her body fell forward, breath caught mid-sentence. Even in death, she was left untouched. No burial, no rites. Her body remained in the canyon, limbs cooling in the dust, as if the earth itself refused to claim her. And yet, no one dared to move her. Days passed, the wind shifted, but still she lay there, unmoved, too sacred or too dangerous to disturb. Some began to whisper her name, not as a failure, but as a promise. A follower retrieved the small book she had left behind. Bound in cracked leather and marked in a language few recognized, it contained no war plans, no maps, only strange symbols and a sequence of instructions. Those who had listened to her fled together. They crossed the frozen plains in silence and founded a small community in hiding, far from the battles that still raged across Liber. Each night, they opened the book. Each day they tried to interpret it. The pages held diagrams, rituals, and social codes, step-by-step instructions for building a society that did not yet exist. In the centuries that followed, the wars never ceased. For the tribes, war remained the only purpose, but it was that very purpose that led to their extinction. One by one, they began to vanish. Only those who embraced Alev's path survived. From their endurance, a new society emerged, one that grew in both numbers and wisdom. And without war to halt them, the peaceful Ishtoas flourished. Their population grew, from hundreds to thousands, then to millions. Freed from the cycle of destruction, their cities rose fast and bright. In a few short centuries, they surpassed even human civilization in scientific understanding and cultural cohesion. The Ishtoas never forgot their origin. They trained with blades still, but the blades grew ceremonial. Rituals replaced raids. Children were taught both histories, the old one, drenched in glory and gore, and the new, carved in caution and debate. But nature had its own reckoning, one quietly provoked by centuries of unchecked industrial advancement. Liber began to cool, winds sharpened, snow crept down from the mountains, blanketing the lowlands. Glaciers carved silent scars through once lush valleys. The planet was entering an ice age. The Ishtoas did not resist it. They adapted. Their cities burrowed deeper, their towers reached higher, and their technology turned inward, searching for balance in the cold. Yet beneath their adaptability, a deeper fear simmered. They were afraid of returning to the violent days, of losing everything they had built through restraint and discipline. That fear haunted their leaders more than the cold, and so they responded with precision. Chemical suppressants were discreetly introduced into food supplies, subtle agents designed to dull inherited impulses. Emotional conditioning became part of every childhood lesson. Peace had been earned at great cost. They would not let it unravel. Still, something old stirred beneath the surface. It came not through rebellion, but by design. It was subtle. Violence crept back in disguise. The Ishtoas began to sculpt their bodies, not openly for war, but for efficiency, for control. Combat readiness became an art form. Muscles were reinforced beneath pale, almost translucent skin, patterned like fractured ice. Neural pathways were optimized to react faster, calculate better. In the snow, they moved like ghosts, every gesture efficient, every form honed. Camouflage was the excuse. Precision was the pursuit. What began as adaptation became aesthetic, and then aesthetics turned militant. The strong were admired again, not for what they had done, but for what they were capable of. Postnatal enhancements gave way to prenatal design. Couples selected their children's traits before birth: eye color, muscle structure, bone density, even emotional thresholds. It became standard, expected. Even children conceived without intervention carried echoes of altered ancestry. Dominant genes passed quietly from one generation to the next, preserving the sculpted ideal. Then came cloning. At first, it was rare, an homage, a means of preserving brilliance or beauty. But soon, parents began to replicate themselves, or recreate a child already deemed perfect. Cities filled with echoing faces, pale skin, silver hair, frost-hardened bodies, endlessly repeated. Generation after generation, the same genes were recycled, untouched by time, unchallenged by change. Uniqueness faded, identity blurred. Survival, once measured by strength or unity, was now calibrated by symmetry. Then came the virus. It spread silently, and it struck with terrifying precision. It targeted the brain's language centers, those same neural pathways preserved unchanged in cloned minds. The Ishtoas had ceased to evolve, but the virus had not. While their bodies remained unaltered, the virus adapted, learned, and infiltrated with ease. One by one, the Ishtoas lost their ability to speak, then to gesture. Debate collapsed. Law silenced. Entire cities fell mute, not by war, but by biology. For decades, only silence endured. But silence did not defeat them. Through neural networks, implants, and quantum-linked translators, they built a new language, one made of light, pulse, and thought. It was not speech. It was communion, connection reimagined, expression reborn. In time, the Ishtoas found their voices again, not the ones shaped by tongue and breath, but by waves and resonance. What they rebuilt was not a return to the old world, but the birth of something entirely new. Humbled by silence and forged through perseverance, they rose into a civilization defined by connection.